and it's one of those areas where it's quite difficult to capture. What are we looking at when we're looking at attitudes? Are we looking at emotional reactions? Are we looking at engagement? Are we looking at effort? And how can we report on that? Well, hopefully we can give you a few ideas in a minute as to how that might be achieved. How can inspectors judge it? There are some guidance in the documents that you can see that pupils are motivated, that pupils are committed to their learning, that they know how to study, they take setbacks in their stride, and also they take pride in their achievements. We may want to look at how we can recognise that and actually work with them on their achievements. It also talks about negative attitudes, might be reflected by behaviour, it might be reflected by low attendance, it might be affected by things like homework not being done on time. And these are all things which we can evidence from our SIMS database. And when you're looking at the very good categories or the outstanding categories, that's the sort of description of how children will behave in an outstanding school, with lots of self-control, positive attitudes towards education, supporting the well-being of others. And again, we'll have a look to see if we can try and capture some of that within our SIMS database. Behaviour is quite easy to monitor, and you can see what behaviour is going on in the school. We can also monitor attendance, which might be another indicator of how children's attitude to school is positive or negative, so we can actually build in some of those ideas. As background to this, there is a very good little booklet from the Education Endowment Foundation called Improving Behaviour in Schools, which is well worth a read. It breaks it down into several steps you can take as a school, and the highlights, I suppose, are that sorry, I just wait for my screen to catch up. There we go. That good behaviour, a positive, progressive approach allows children to mature socially and emotionally, enhances the opportunities for quality teaching and learning, and reassures parents that a child spends time in a caring environment. And they will suggest some general principles, and a lot of these are about consistency, looking at the behaviour, not the pupil, making sure there are consequences, and making sure that children are taking a reflective role in their own behaviour. Use of specific behaviour related praise, so where there is good practice going on, where children are working well, that needs to be praised. Reward systems are good, but they must be part of a wider strategy of managing classroom behaviour, and they do need to be implemented at a whole school level. And it's interesting, they did a survey at the same time as what were the main areas where schools could improve in terms of behaviour and safety of pupils, well-being of pupils, and at the top was behaviour management and the consistency of behaviour management being applied across the school, and having good monitoring behaviour systems. And we'll have a look at that in relation to SIMS. So without further ado, I'm just going to come out of this PowerPoint for the moment, and we will actually look at our SIMS database and begin to pull in some of the areas where we might have our evidence for what's going on in our school, where we are looking, first of all, we're very much focused on the behaviour side, and how SIMS can give you that information in terms of trends and key groups, and down to individual students and how we've monitored those. In case you've never used SIMS behaviour, we'll just take a very, very quick look at recording some behaviour. I'm going to do this from the register. I'm going to assume that I'm logged into my school. I am using a primary database, but everything I show is equally valid in a secondary school database. So I've logged in, I'm doing my register, so I've got the SIMS open on this page. And if I want to record either a positive or a negative piece of behaviour, I can do that with a simple right click on the child's name and go ahead and add in either a behaviour incident or add some positive reinforcement to the child. The categories which come up when I click on Add Achievement are 100% decided by the school. SIMS, ESS who own SIMS, I've put in some standard criteria, but these can be totally changed by the school to reflect your school's policy. So if I just want to record, say, an excellent effort for a particular child in my class, I can do that with just that single right click. It's going to give a very, very basic addition to the child's record. If I want to add a behaviour issue, again, this can be 100% customised. Let's say there's an issue with homework, but for me as the classroom teacher, I want it noted that there's been a behaviour, but I want to resolve it. So let me just go on to homework, and I'm just going to mark it as resolved because I've taken the time to talk to that child to make them understand that I'm recording it, but it's not going to go any further. So the input of the data is simple. Simple for me as a classroom teacher, simple for me to do multiple pupils if I need to. So there's no barrier from within SIMS for actually entering the fact that we have behaviours, that we have achievements going on, and that we're recognising what that happens. If I have a more serious incident, I can actually add a lot more detail to it. So the list which I generate now of behaviours is actually longer than what I have when I do a right click. The simple quick answer is for things which maybe I've resolved in the classroom. These might require me to put in a little bit more detail. There might need to be a narrative, there might need to be a time and place added in, and I might need to add in some other students who are involved in there. But that's the input side. What we really need to think is, as senior leaders in a school, how can we be aware of what's going on and show that we have that information at our fingertips in terms of the behaviour going on in our school? And there are a myriad of places where that data can come to the fore. So first of all, my homepage in SIMS should be bringing me that information of what's going on in my school. So I have set my homepage up here. As the head teacher, I've got two panels. I've got a behaviour panel, I've got an achievement panel. As soon as data is entered by a teacher in the classroom, I will know within 6 minutes because my data will change. I've set this one up. Let me just go bigger with it so we can see it more clearly. I've set this up to be year to date, but if I wanted just to look at this week's set of behaviour, I can change the time parameter and have a look at what's been going on this week. I can also change the group I'm looking at. So if I'm a phase leader or a head of year, I can choose any of the groups which I want to use to focus on those. So I've got an idea of what are the major concerns in terms of behaviour at my school. I've got lunchtime incidents going on, I've got inadequate work in class, and I've got disruptive behaviour are the three key areas. And I've also got an other category which is taking up a lot, and I might want to investigate to see why the behaviour recorded for these children wasn't part of our normal disruptive behaviours area. Again, just to be, if I want to make sure I can see what's going on, if I go into my inadequate work in class, just do a double click on the column, I can then begin to see who are the pupils actually involved in that, and are there pupils who are coming up multiple times. So again, if I'm looking at behaviour across the school, when I begin to pick on individuals who are contributing a larger than expected proportion of those events, this is again is telling me that possibly I need to look at Lily Dennis already in terms of not working in class. Again, let me just click on the lunchtime incidents. If I come to that, I can see that I've possibly got an issue with a child called Ryan Carter who might be causing some issues. So I've got two children I might want to take a little bit further, and again, just make sure that we're doing things to support their learning and show that we're responding to the fact that teachers are recording incidents for those children. So from that widget, I'm beginning to build up a picture. I'm seeing what's going on. I could narrow that down to a particular time frame, but I've also got the positive aspects going on. I've got the achievements on my other widget, so I can also see what the good things are going on and where the praise is coming. And again, as a senior leadership in the school, having this on my desktop and refreshing, it might be that I do want to set this down to the current week, so that when I can see a child being awarded something like Star of the Week, being given credit for outstanding work, I can then actually identify and reinforce that praise and reinforce that positive behaviour by dropping into the classroom or having the child pop along to my office and reinforce all the good work that's been going on with those children. So we've got that evidence at our hand, and we're also reinforcing the positives by taking action. If we then want to look at some trends and see how are we working throughout the academic year, are there pressure points where at particular times in the year things are going wrong and maybe teachers are struggling, there are other analytical tools which we can bring in. So I'm just going to pop into Discover, which I've opened already. This is pulling that data out of those databases. So again, thinking of, do I know what's going on? Am I confident that we've got a good, positive working atmosphere? I can begin to look at various charts showing me where the behaviour points might be being accrued. And I seem to have a very definitive pattern that as the children go through the school, we might be looking at more and more behaviour incidents going on. But I might want to look at that and think, okay, I can see that year 6, is that the year 6 teachers wanting to really crack down on minor infringements? Are there particular groups within that year group which are causing particular cause for concern? So I could cross-match that. I could actually say, right, let's take our year 6s. I just wonder if it's any of the SEN children. So let's drop our SEN children across and see out of the behaviour points, who are earning them. So we can see by dropping on my SEN children from my SEN graph, I can see that they're only responsible for 10 out of the 63 behaviour points earned that so far this term. So it's not purely a question of them not being able to cope and therefore creating issues. But notice we've got this Ryan Carter, whose name I picked up earlier. So I'm thinking now that I do want to investigate Ryan a little bit more. He's probably a name which is now beginning to resonate with me in terms of charting that behaviour. Because Discover will pull through up to 3 years of data, I can take information from, let's say, last year, and let's just look at the trend of how behaviour incidents went through the academic year. So there's our 6 half terms, and we can see that maybe we applied our behaviour policy inconsistently. It looks like we cracked down very, very keen on using the policy in autumn. Did we then have absolutely brilliant behaviour throughout autumn term 2, or did we not apply our policy in the same way? And that's probably a question which we want to ask and work about in school. And then again, we've got the pattern through the other terms. But what I can do is look at that trend by bringing out the same chart for this year, bearing in mind we would only have had a little bit of data, 1.5 terms worth of data, and some in term 2. And we can see that actually the behaviour this year, in the current year, we haven't recorded half as many incidents of poor behaviour. And now, is that a result of our good behaviour policy, that we've actually tackled some of the major issues and that now children have developed a better behaviour for learning? Or are we not being as strict as we were in the previous year? So there's questions to be asked, but this chart will begin to help me work out what the questions are. Because as we've come into term 2, although we're only a week or so into term 2, we've actually accrued more behaviour points in term 2 than we did in the previous year. So Discover will enable me as a senior leader to develop quite a secure knowledge of what's happening both in various terms, in terms of students who might be creating more issues than others. So we've got 333 of the children in my rather large primary school have never created a behaviour problem, but we've got 110 pupils who are sitting in there at the moment with between 1 to 10 issues. And we can also analyse our behaviour in a range of ways, by type, by location, by activity. So we may have seen that there were a lot of lunchtime incidents. We may want to look at that as a staffing issue and need to put senior leaders to patrol the lunchtime areas a little bit more, or we need to have more lunchtime assistants to help at that particular time of the day. But it allows us to identify those pinch points and therefore produce that better atmosphere and environment for the children so that the behaviour incidents don't occur. Just going to minimise Discover, and I'm just going to now think of the individuals I mentioned earlier. So I picked up on 2 children who might be causing those issues. So it might be that I want to go into and have a look at their records in a little bit more detail. So I've actually already marked these as favourites, as children who I'm paying particular attention to. So let's look at Ryan. I'm actually going to go to student teacher view because it's a little bit clearer to see. So student teacher view of Ryan, again, I've started with that broad picture of what type of behaviour is going into my school and what are we doing about it. I can now see that we are building up a range of incidents which are occurring. Most of them do seem to be lunchtime incidents, so we may then want to look at why those are occurring. We know he's got some SEN support, so maybe we need to drill in and see, does he need some support in terms of emotional support at lunchtime? And we've got sort of some traffic lighting of what's going on in terms of his behaviour as we go through the year. So again, I've gone from that bigger picture, and now I can look at our response to it. What are we doing to support individuals? I've also got this attendance and initiative chart, which if I just bring that large, will actually show me what's happening on a week-by-week basis, with each of these little red points being a behaviour issue which has occurred. And I can see if we're looking at, a period of time. So we've got here 3 or 4 weeks when nothing seems to have happened. Now, ideally, that would be as a result of something we did. So I'm just going to close down Ryan's record and go into Lily's. Because with Lily, we actually wanted to record the things we were doing to support Lily in terms of her behaviour. So she was accruing a large number of disruptive behaviours and not getting her work done. So as we went through, we began to look at what initiatives, what things we were doing, and these vertical purple lines are the ones which are recording what the child's doing. What we have done for the child. So we're looking at the efficiency of our whole school strategies. So these are things we're putting in place for one child to support their behaviour. Unfortunately, both of these do not really seem to have made that much difference. So it might be a time for us to have a look at another initiative with Lily as we go through the term. There are also any number of reports which we can pull out, which come out as either Excel or Word documents, which would enable us to have a good record of what's going on. And we're looking at, again, at individuals, but also at that whole school picture. So that's very much the behaviour side of the behaviour and attitudes area. I'm just going to pop back into my PowerPoint for a minute. I'm just going to skip through a lot of these. As any good teacher, I had a lot of things prepared in case my Sims wasn't accessible. We're still working from home, and sometimes my home connection's not good. But just in terms of rewarding good behaviour, we looked earlier at a child's record and saw we can pick up when they're doing things, and we've got a category in our school of Star of the Week. This is a report which we've just run, which puts out the data into a template, and it's just reinforcing that really positive behaviour so that the child's got something either physically to take home or with use of other systems. It can be reinforced through a message in an app or through a web page. I won't go through all of these. These are just examples of the types of reports we can run. But just really to join all the dots together, where you record a positive achievement in Sims by a classroom teacher, you're not recording that in isolation. It can then be promulgated to the people who need to know automatically through things like the homepage widgets, through running reports, through designing a letter in Sims, looking at it in Discover, using some of the communication tools like Parent App and Sims in Touch. That one piece of data which has been entered can be used many, many times to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on in terms of those achievements. And the same for the behaviour. I won't bother going through that behaviour chart, but it works in exactly the same way, that once behaviour is recorded, it can be fed into many, many other areas of Sims and to the various different audiences you require. So I haven't checked to see if there are any questions on the behaviour side. I don't think there are any. I can't see any.
Not at the moment.
Okay, so we'll move on to attitude, which I've always felt was a little bit more nebulous in terms of trying to capture. But we can, again, find our evidence within Sims, and I want to do most of this in Sims. Attendance is one of those areas where we might want to think. In fact, I'm going to go straight back into Sims rather than show any of my charts. Let's go back into Sims. And we'll go back to our home page first of all. So again, first of all, I'm a senior leader. I'm looking at what's going on and I want to see if there's good attendance. So I have my individual widgets, which are showing me what the attendance is per group. I'm just hovering over my reception group or my year 6. As I hover, I'm getting the percentage attendance for that group. So with my year 6s, I'm up to 99 there. I've got my authorised and unauthorised absences at the top. And again, just as I could with attendance and behaviour, if I want to start picking up on a trend and looking at individuals and their individual attitude to attending school, I can identify any of those children and can sort that either way. And then I can actually go in further from here into that child's record. So I can go from that big picture and identifying a year group which looks slightly wrong, down to an individual child and look at their attendance pattern. And again, if I bring that up, we can see that the weekly attendance is dipping all the time, and therefore we've had, due to 1, 2, 3 incidences in a week over the weeks of low behaviour, the cumulative attendance has dropped down to where it is at the moment, which is just around 70%. So we'll just close that down and we'll come back to our home page. I can also see that we've got a problem with year 2 doing the register, so I need to go back and talk to my year 2 teachers about making sure that their registers are done on time. Again, I can configure these to pick up on different groups. So it could be year groups, it could be registration groups, it could be user-defined groups. It could be I've already identified a cohort of children who I want to track in terms of their attendance this year. And I may want to have a little chart just showing theirs. Again, I can use Discover for that because I can capture the children whose attendance last year was low, and then I can have that as a group, which I can then use as a filter. I haven't got any Discover groups here, but I can make a group which will show that filter. So we're looking at attendance as one of the things which we can report on, and we may want to identify within that whole area if there's any particular group which is causing the issues. So I'm just going to run a report which I've written with alongside a number of schools, just to give me a quick overview of what's happening in terms of attendance by the key groups I'm working on. So this is my attendance year to date. It's broken down by year group, and I'm just color coding with any factor which is under 90%, our target percentage. And I can see that I'm looking at my SEND children. There's only 2 of those. They're both girls and their attendance is low. That might be something I know about. It might be an educational healthcare plan due to a health or medical issue. And I can also see that we've got an issue with a child in care whose attendance is low. If we're pushing to be a little bit higher than 90, again, I can just go in, change that to 95%, and then I begin to look at if we've got any issues. So again, in terms of the attitude to attending school, I can see both on my homepage and by running some particular reports. I can also run attendance in Discover and see what the culture is in terms of attendance. In fact, I will just show you that in Discover. I'm going to set this to the current year, and I'm going to pick out my session attendance report. And this is showing me children with 100% attendance, and it's showing me the children whose attendance is less than 90% at the moment. Just going to go back to last year, and I'm going to pull out exactly the same chart and just drop it on the other side. So last year we finished the year with 33 children who were persistently absent. Just going to drop those in the background, and I'm going to drop my 71 who are currently below that, and I can identify my 17 children who are persistently absent and were persistently absent last year. So whatever strategies we put in place last year have not managed to improve the attendance of this group, or it may have improved it, but not to the point where it comes across 90%. So this is where I could use Discover to create a group which will feed into Sims and allow me to set up a little widget on my home page. I can also use it as a filter on any of our assessment reports or on any other report which I need to produce. It will identify those children. So that's one of the areas. I'm just going to go back into the PowerPoint just briefly. I've worked with a number of different schools and different ways of trying to sort of capture this. So we have had things which might just be an effort or an attitude to learning grade, which is given by a subject alongside an academic attainment. It could be that there's something even a little bit more detailed than just an effort grade, and which may not be related to a subject. So this comes from a secondary school in Cornwall who have something called Herbs, and they regularly take in pastoral data on homework, effort, readiness for work, and behaviour for learning. That's something which they record regularly to back up the academic attainment and academic progress, which is recorded in the assessment module. Other schools in Devon use either a 5R or a 6R model and have broken down that attitude into the titles you can see on the screen: responsibility, reasoning, etc. And within each of those, there will be a parameter. Now, I've titled that resourcefulness. That's actually responsibility. So within that heading, the school have identified 4 different positive attitudes which they would like children to show. And then we can use Sims to take that into account. So let's pop back into Sims. And I'm just going to pull up a mark sheet now. And I've just run this for year 6 so far today. So let's just look at year 6 and look at the year 6 6 R's mark sheet. So what we've asked our teachers to do is once a term, just have a think about the child, and in each of those categories, give them a grade from A, which is, yes, working at the best of their ability, showing good reasoning powers, using the criteria we've put in, and they're just going to put those grades in to give us an idea of the child's attitude to the work. When I calculate then, I've produced another parameter. This is taking the mean of the 6 criteria and saying that on average then, the child's at a B or a C or lower. And then we might want to look at those children who are below where we'd expect them to be in terms of their attitude, and look at what we can do to support that. Because I'm doing this in Sims alongside all the other criteria, if I just want to focus on my pupil pre and children and look at their attitude across the school, I can pull that together in exactly the same way and just look at those children who are pupil premium. Exactly the same for the herbs or the herb parameters. Again, if I just go in here and look at the type of grades we're looking at, so we're looking at working well, showing good knowledge, etc. I'm using a slightly different grade set. As we put these grades in, I'll just do a couple more. So it's not taking me too much time. It's not becoming a huge extra workload for me as a pastoral teacher, as someone looking after a group. But now if I calculate on this one, it's giving me a point score and a total point score from those 4, where A is equal to 5, E is equal to 1, and it's giving me that breakdown. So I can then sort my children and have a look at those who aren't scoring very well, and look at again what we can do to support and encourage a more positive attitude towards their work. So I'm bringing that data into Sims, which means I can then also report on that. So as a senior leader, rather than having a look at a mark sheet, I might want to go to something called a tracking grid. Let's look at my 6 R's tracking grid. Just going to populate this. So I've got my resourcefulness, and I should have all 6 of them. I've only put 3 in today. But as I look at the various factors which we've identified as part of a positive attitude to learning, we can just have a look and see who are the children who are fitting into each of those categories, and might want to start looking at what we can do for the children who are sort of in the lower end of our attitude tracker. But it's something which we can definitely develop and record, and also record that over time. So although I've only recorded this currently for year 6 autumn, we can actually move that across every time we want to do that, either termly or less frequently. Okay, I'm just going to pop back again into my PowerPoint. So we'll just go through the screenshots. We've already seen the attendance and the behaviour. I've now got my 6 R's average coming through, so that we're using that across, and we might want to pull in any other of those resilience grades into there. So I'm aware that that's maybe a little bit small on your screens. But it does mean we can also produce a pastoral report. So if we're looking at, in keeping the parents informed, showing the parents how our child feels about education in our school, feels about what we're doing, we've got a pastoral report which we can produce. We probably need a little key to explain what our B's and C's are in terms of our grades for each of those attitude areas. And we've also pulled through the other factors. We've pulled in their attendance, and we've pulled through their conduct. So we're looking at the behaviour and the achievement side, and all that's coming out in one simple report, which we can generate and share with the parents, and make sure the child's settling in the autumn term to school life again. We don't actually have the question in the survey, so we will pass on that. And I suppose before I finish, we just want to say, if you're interested and want more information, or would like to know how you could implement some of these things in your school, you can speak to me. My email's there on the screen. There's also the telephone number for the Scomis help desk, who will put any queries through to myself, my colleague Gary, or to your account manager. Every school's got a designated account manager, and they're happy to speak to you and talk to you and find out what your needs are. There's also our website, where we hope to build up a whole range of resources which you can access. There's our YouTube channel, where we publish videos regularly on various things which might be useful. And there's the new myscomis.org, which is your portal into our services, which will be going live on Monday next week, and where you'll be getting your usernames and passwords for that over the weekend. And there's also ESS, who now control and work with work sims and develop sims, also have a portal where you can feedback ideas, which they then want to take into the next phase as they take sims forward to meet the challenges that schools are facing. So I'm conscious I've talked and I've gone over my 30 minutes. Apologies for that.